This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Chris Haddon. What's going on, Chris?
Brian, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I can't complain. Living the dream, right?
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. Glad to be here.
So, Chris, you deal in a hard money space and loans. Why don't you give everyone a little background on what all you deal with?
Yeah, sure. So we are a private lender for investment real estate deals. So that's resi investment and also small balance commercial. We've been doing it for about 15 years now. Actually, next month is our 15-year anniversary from when we closed our first deal. So that was December 2007. We're a team of about 10. We lend mainly in the mid-Atlantic, and we have about 50 million outstanding. And it's been great. It's been a great run.
Now, did you say you got started in 2007?
Yeah.
That's a rough time to get started.
Oh, that's part of the story. Yeah, it was dicey back then. It sure was. It's not, we see certain signs now that remind us a little bit of that time, but it wasn't the same, at least not from what we've seen so far. So at that time, for people who weren't in business back then, the whole financial and real estate worlds had just crashed, like behind the subprime mess and all of that stuff, everything that happened with stocks. I mean, there was Madoff, like all at once, right? And my business partner, Jason, and I were transitioning out from mortgage industry into starting our own company, doing the private lending and going out to raise capital, in the time when there's a really, really bad sentiment around investing, especially in investment real estate, but really real estate in general. So raising capital and starting the whole thing at that time was very challenging. But, in hindsight, it was a great time to start, right? At the bottom, very little competition, very little capital in the market, and there was no place to go but up. And that's in essence what happened.
Yeah, and you know what? If you can make it in those years, you're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, startup time then, it was a different animal. There's a lot of pain going on, but no, I mean, it worked out. Like we didn't work out easily. Like just saying it worked out is like kind of really sugarcoating it. But no, at the time there was so little capital in the market, kind of what we're moving into, but the exact opposite of what we've seen in the past 5 or 7 years, where there's just tons of capital, especially for investment real estate deals, cheap money, institutional capital. There's none of that going on, right? But there was a lot of demand because it was so short on capital. So it was a challenging time. I mean, my business partner, Jason, is throwing loans in the pipeline. I'm coming up with the capital to match them. Somehow we hit every closing date. We didn't have to pass on a deal. We didn't have to, and then it kind of took off from there. And we were figuring out what we were doing in terms of, we knew how to lend. We knew real estate just from our background and owning properties and doing bank loans and stuff like that. We knew how to lend. We didn't necessarily know how to run a company, all the stuff that goes into that, the infrastructure, the accounting, legal things, all the basics, right? That you kind of learn on the fly when you have to, because that's where you are, right? And over time, it became more legit. We hired staff, got proper office, and it's been going like that ever since. And we've had a few different, I would call seasons, like as people refer to them, seasons of our company's history and of us growing up as real estate entrepreneurs. And it's been a great ride. It's been a great ride. The seasons are different,
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's calling up seasons. You're right, because especially growing, and if you're growing in hyper fast mode too, like all the pains you get to experience that you don't know what's coming.
For sure. And pretty early on, probably 3 years or so after we started, we hired a business coach. The first time we did something like that, we had a full-time business, not full-time, but like we had a business coach for the both of us. And part of the goal was just don't mess it up. You got a good thing going. We were, maybe 30 at the time, something like that. We're hiring staff. We're scaling our operation in every aspect. And the business coach, a lot of it was centered around like, okay, how do we grow in a smart way, not in the wrong ways, and don't mess it up. And also marketing. I know you're a big marketer. So I also saw on another thing, you had Russell Brunson's book behind you in a different shot when I was watching the YouTube video. So we were in Russell's mastermind. That was some years later. We were in Russell's inner circle for about 2 years.
Which one? The original one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were in about maybe 6 months after it started. So anyway, back to the marketing stuff. So another reason why it was an interesting time to start is because it was kind of a change in generation in terms of private lenders like us. Like when we started, we were in our late 20s. All of our competition, they were smaller outfits, less formal, and in their 50s, more or less, right here in DC and Baltimore area. And so we came on kind of as the next generation with a proper website. We were doing email marketing. Certain things were just getting going, like pay-per-click. Like we were one of the first people around here on AdWords. And we have our main campaign. This is a funny story, but our main campaign on Google AdWords hasn't paused since 2008. So I think we're grandfathered in with some cheaper clicks. And then social came around and got huge. And like we were kind of, granted, every private lender like us is there now and has been. But around our market, we were one of the first. It was just timing, right? And we were like more tech savvy than our competition. And we kind of came out on the scene as like the next generation. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, that's interesting too, especially like if you were in Russell Brunson's inner circle and things, you just weren't toying around with marketing. Like I know that's a big investment, time and money.
Yeah, and that came later. Later. Like we were in that maybe like 2015 and 16, like around there. So around that time, so after startup phase, like that was one season, right? Like we were getting things going, building staff, getting to a solid bottom line, stuff like that. And then we got a bit of the, shiny object syndrome that so many entrepreneurs deal with, where we just wanted to do everything. We were running our lending company, of course, always been plan A. We were buying properties. We were launching websites, wrote a couple books, selling some stuff online. Like we were just trying to do everything under the sun. And that was kind of the second season, right? It was a great time, a great learning experience. We got more public with us and what we were doing, and became pretty well known around the local real estate market, as we had been before, but that kind of expanded. And then over time, you start to realize that I'm doing all these things, but which are the truly profitable ones, right? Like, are we spending more of our time on all this stuff over here? Because, some people can run, like a Gary Vee or somebody like that. He can run 12 companies at a time. I can't. I can't run 12 companies at a time. It doesn't work for me. I can run a couple well, but that's about it in terms of focus. And so over time, and this wasn't like a conscious thought, like we just kind of went through the process and grew and matured, right? And so over the years, so then like 5 years after that, like in the, I don't know, maybe 2017, 18, 19 timeframe, we started shedding some of the side deals, some of the side gigs that weren't profitable. They were just kind of being done to be done, and focused in and doubled down on the stuff that really, really affected the bottom line in a positive way, right? And so we matured as business owners, as real estate entrepreneurs, kind of naturally. And again, it wasn't like a conversation of like, oh, we got to shed all this stuff. Like it kind of, we gravitated towards what we knew worked, right? And then we expanded geographic markets a couple times in lending, brought on some partners to do so. And that was a big win. Later on, we ended up selling off our residential rentals. So we had 18 or 19, something like that, which we sold. I mean, the market timing was good. Like we were buying in 14 and 15 and selling in 20 and 21. So like that portfolio, the cash flow wasn't super impressive. It was more work than it was money, which I don't like. The work put in for the money coming out is how we gauge most everything, right? And it wasn't there for us in that niche. And so we sold our residential rentals one at a time, basically. Maybe we sold a couple at a time, but it wasn't like a package deal, right? Divested from that. And around that time, we started learning how to do equity deals as well. We had gotten more into the lending on commercial, and then we started learning how to co-own and invest equity in multifamily, office, and storage. And so that's become a nice side gig for us in that we don't have to manage it. We invest with just a couple operators that we know well, trust, and it's been a good expansion for us in terms of deploying our capital, some more investor capital, You get that K1 with write-offs instead of just straight fees on the lending side. So it's been a good extension of our natural business.
So what are you doing on that side? You're investing in the commercial or the commercial multis, things like that. And instead of it being a hard money, they got to pay back in 12 months, you're taking equity and just K1s and more longer term, right?
Longer term for sure. And we've done a couple of different arrangements. We've done straight equity without any debt involved. We've done debt for equity. So in essence, like do a loan at cost on a storage property, for example, and then take some equity instead of fees. And then we've done both. On certain projects, we've done both, like the upfront financing in terms of the first mortgage, and then came in with some equity as well, and then plan to be refinanced out, and we've gotten refinanced out on several of those deals, and we get to stay in. It's been pretty good. It's been a good extension for us.
That's cool. Hey, you said you got a business coach before. Did that work out well? Did you find benefit there?
Definitely. At the time, it was necessary. And the business coach, a guy named Tony Mayo here in the DC area, was referred by a friend of mine who's also a business owner. And it was really what we needed at the time, because he's a very good infrastructure, organization guy, HR, like he's been around, he's had his own companies, he's been a corporate guy. And then kind of as a retirement gig, he went to do the coaching. It was really what we needed at the time, when we were 30-ish and needed to run it like adults.
Yeah, I was wondering, is that what made you start looking at time versus profit, or did that come after? Like that, so you cut off some of the fat.
Maybe there was some of that during that time frame, but later on, it was just a natural progression of, we don't want to work on stuff that isn't, positively impacting the bottom line. Because at that point, you're just doing work. Or like maybe you're doing it for some publicity stuff, but like how much does that back out? Tough to say, right? Could I put my attention, would my attention, my focus be better used elsewhere, right? And that's kind of what we've grown into, like pre-pandemic, during, and after, is really focusing on what works well, using our time right, using our team right, and trimming the fat in other stuff. It's been good.
Right. What do you see and works really well for you guys?
Well, definitely our core lending, for sure. And over time, deploying more and more of our own capital along with our capital investors, and expanding into larger loans, meaning small balance commercial. So doing that like $500K to $2 million commercial. And we can do those a little more effectively outside of our market too, because the underwriting's a bit different. It's not quite as localized. That's been a good one. And then, like I was mentioning, the equity too.
Okay, gotcha. And then for everyone listening too, so core lending's your primary business, right? Who is your ideal investor? Like, what types of deals are a good fit for you, and what kind of experience level from the investor?
So, okay. If we're talking about the residential investor, there are many, many people out there who are pro fix and flippers, right? That's what they do. They've done, a handful of deals in the past. We'll do newbie investors too, because sometimes those newbie investors will come in having been successful elsewhere. Like they had a successful career or investing in something else, and they're, well-heeled financially. And we could absolutely lend to those folks for sure, in addition to the experienced guys. And maybe not like the super high level home buyers, like the big home buying companies. They buy, 10 or 20 properties a month. They have full teams. Like, we're not really the best financing for those people. They operate more on credit lines or maybe some institutional money, stuff like that. But like I do 5 to 10 deals a year kind of investor here in the local market. So we're in basically DC, Baltimore, and Philly, in New Jersey as well. And they focus on their local market. They run a smaller team. Like that's, some of our bread and butter and repeat clients who we lend to several times a year.
Okay, cool. So pretty much like the normal investors, like the average investor out there, not doing crazy deals and big team stuff like that.
Exactly right. And along with the commercial property owners, it could be people who own or operate their business out of a building, or people who just buy for cash flow, right? And that could be multifamily, office, again, storage. All of that stuff is something that we have put more of a focus on in the past few years.
Okay, cool. And then You only do it in those markets you mentioned?
So we focus on the Mid-Atlantic, 6 states around the Mid-Atlantic, but we do look at deals elsewhere, case by case, basically. Yeah.
Just if anyone's interested in working with you, just hit you up, run the deal by you, and you'll give them a green light or red light.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do it quickly.
All right, cool. What's your business look like in the future? Like, where do you see things going?
So a couple things going on. I mean, more of plan A. I think that's always a good model is to stick with what you know is working and has worked for years. We've also been running a mastermind for private lenders over the past 5 or so years, both online and offline. It's hardmoneymastermind.com. We just had our first meeting, in essence, our inner circle that we kind of modeled on Russell's. And we couldn't do it for a long time, pandemic reasons, all that. But we just had maybe 14, 15 lenders from around the country come here and work with us in a hotel not far away. And it was a really, really cool 2 days. So expanding in the mastermind is just an extension of our own lending company and potential lending opportunities elsewhere. And people in that group need different stuff, right? Like some people have deal flow and are raising capital, and some people have a few million of their own money and they don't know how to underwrite. Super common. So people need different stuff. So it's kind of a natural extension of our lending business to consider looking at other markets. Maybe we'll pick up another geographic market, or just share knowledge, deal flow, all of that. So it's been really cool. It's been gaining speed over the past year or two.
What made you start the mastermind? 'Cause I know that's a lot of work.
Well, like Jason and I say, like we are in here in the office every day talking about hard money. We might as well talk about hard money to an audience because we're doing it anyway, right? So in terms of the podcast, Private Lenders Podcast, and the mastermind group, and it just kind of all blends together. It all rolls together. It doesn't take our focus away from our core business. It kind of keeps it there, right? Is it work to run a mastermind? It is. Doing trainings and stuff like that. Have you run one yourself? I know you're like definitely out there with all the media and the leads and your own investments.
Yeah, no, I've never run one. I'm in a like Collective Genius. I don't know if you heard.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I know that.
I was in some others. I recently just scaled back. I actually did one of Russell Brunson's after you were in one of his mastermind things, but yeah, I've never ran one myself.
Yeah, it's new for us too. Semi-new because it's been online, which is obviously lower maintenance. Just running the online stuff, and then just recently expanded to the offline. Actually, the idea came up originally. This is kind of a funny story. A guy named Nick Capitanis, who's a private lender in Richmond, which is just south of us in kind of a market that we don't lend in. He hit us up 6 or 7 years ago now. And he's like, look, I need to improve some of my stuff, marketing, underwriting, processes, everything else. Can I throw you guys some money and just come to your office for a couple of days and learn what you do? And we're like, sure. And we did that. And it turned into like a co-lending kind of relationship where if he has some overflow deals, like he'll put up 20%, we'll put up 80%, run it through our system and everything else. And so it's become another outlet for him. That's kind of how it came up. And then later on, it evolved into the rest of it. But yeah, it's been cool. It's been cool. And you know what they say, like teaching something makes you better at it yourself is super true. It's very, very true.
100%.
Yeah. And we learn from everyone else because, they all run their business a little bit differently in terms of underwriting, pricing, systems, software. So we get to see what everyone else is up to and everyone gets better collectively.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing with masterminds too, if you have the right people, it's awesome sitting in the same room and talking with really smart people because everyone has different ideas and you can always give a lot of value and then you always learn a lot as well on things you never would have even thought about.
Totally. Like people who make the commitment and the investment of time and money to join a mastermind, they're successful people, right? Maybe they have a different background, different aspects of business or real estate, but they've had a lot of success before. So bringing that into one room, you're absolutely right. I mean, it turns into a great discussion, a fun time, and everybody backs it out in all the ways.
Yeah, that's right too. I remember going to the first mastermind. I'm like, boy, I was like the stupidest guy in the room, which was awesome because there's like really smart people there, but it's really uncomfortable too.
Yeah. Which one did you go to? Because I know I definitely followed that group over the years, even after we weren't in it physically.
What, CG?
Oh, no. I was thinking of the Brunson one.
Oh, the Brunson. It was a 2CCX, 2 Comma Club.
Oh, cool. And you've been to funnel hacking and all that?
Yeah, that's where he got me, man. I was one of the big hits in the back of the room, giving him 20 grand.
Were you in Nashville?
No, I was in, this was back in, when was it? It was down in Orlando.
We were at Orlando and then 2 Nashville events.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to say 2. Maybe it was 3 in Nashville. Anyway, we've been around too. That group, that room, the presenters, the people who have come from the inner circle from back in the day and gone to the freaking stratosphere, like, it's been awesome to watch over the past, 7 years or so. It's been really awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's so crazy, man, how they present. They present so well, the psychology and how they're presenting and what they're saying. It's just, like, Russell Brunson's a freaking genius.
He is.
Just with everything, and it's all, it's all down-to-earth kind of stuff, but it's all strategic as well.
It is. It's all well choreographed, and it has, it's funny what they say, and he says it, like, you're learning the Russell game plan, but based on what form you're consuming it in. Like, it could be the podcast, it could be his books, it could be the, inner circle, whatever. It's all the same game plan. It's just whatever format it's in is going to require different stuff from you in terms of commitment. It might inspire different action from the people taking it in. Super interesting. And it's something that we've taken and tried to apply to our mastermind and the whole thing as well.
Yeah, that's something funny you bring that up too. I was just thinking about this, last month, I think it was. Like, you can buy a book for $10, or you can go to a course for like $2,000. Like, I did Dale Carnegie. He had a high impact public speaking course, right? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, sign me up. It was like $2,500. Then I read the book after. I'm like, all the information is in the book for $10.
Yeah.
But me personally, I do better in a class atmosphere to grasp things. It keeps my attention better. But other people, you can get the same information for $10,000, or you can give someone like $50,000 to be one-on-one with you. It's like, but you're right. It's all the same information.
Yeah. It's just about how it inspires you to put it into action and execute on whatever, be held accountable. Like, if you think about the room at funnel hacking, it's way different than reading a book. Being in that room, in, just the energy of it, and the people who you're going to be talking to afterwards and at lunches and dinners, and in learning from what they're doing and taking the pieces that apply to you. And the game is just how well you're going to execute, because everybody goes back with a list of stuff. We're going to do this, this, and this. And it's important to focus on what you can really do. Execute on a few. Can't execute on a dozen things that you take away from a conference, even though we would all love to. Unless you're Russell, maybe. Russell probably could. Some of those guys might be able to, but not us.
And you're right, too. Like, even in those rooms, it's even different than virtual, too. Just the energy you're getting from everybody. Like, just everyone's getting pumped, and all, just the energy levels increase, which makes you want to start doing things proactively.
Oh, totally. And then Tony Robbins comes in at the end, and as you're all jumping around, and, just the energy and the feeling that you come away with after that conference, like, it stays with you. And we'll be back. Yeah, I've seen him a couple times there. We'll be back. When the time's right, we'll get back. Yeah, haven't been doing too much of that recently, but yeah, no, great stuff. It's been a really interesting ride in how you. Good.
No, I was just gonna say that's cool. Like, what are you looking for? Hard money guys to apply to be in the mastermind?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a free community online, and then it's kind of like freemium, right? And then there's, other stuff that you can get in on monthly trainings for a small monthly fee, and then there's offline mastermind and stuff that will grow organically over time. If anyone wants to check it out, I think the best place is actually just a podcast. Just a podcast anyone could check it out, which is the Private Lenders Podcast. Good place to start. We put out our best stuff on that podcast about once a week. Probably got 100 episodes up there or something like that. And yeah, people can get a lot of value if they're interested in private lending on any level. They can get a lot of value just from the podcast.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and everyone listening, we'll have the link in the show notes. So
awesome.
You can go check that out.
Sure thing.
Hey, Chris, well, we're about out of time. What else we want to, did we miss anything?
No, I think we basically, my mental bullet points are basically all covered. So no, soon you got to come on one of our podcasts for sure.
Yeah, let me know.
We'll break it all down on your side.
Sweet. Hey, now, if anyone wants to reach out to you for hard money, things like that, give them your website again.
It is hardmoneybankers.com.
Yeah, that's a pretty good domain name.
Yeah. Like I said, we got in early.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, guys. Hey, everyone listening. Yeah, thanks for listening. Check out Chris. Go check out his website. Everything will be in the show notes. It'll be on YouTube. Hey, Chris, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Brian, thank you for having me. It was a good time.
Hey, you know what? One last question. What's your top book?
It's my top book. So I'm going to go with 4-Hour Workweek. And it's because of timing. When I read that book, it was at the time when we were leaving jobs and starting a company and just seeing everything that was possible in the world that I had no idea really existed, was super impactful. So because of the timing, my quick answer is 4-Hour Workweek.
Yeah, you know what? That is a good one, too. It depends on the timing when you read it.
Yes.
But it shows you how, you're wasting a lot of time on doing nonsense.
Yeah.
You can get a lot more done quickly.
And the world's so big and there's so much to do, and it's not what you learned growing up. Yeah. That was like a huge takeaway for us. Yeah.
And you binge vacations. Americans binge vacations.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Hey, everyone go check that book out, too. Yeah, I'm always curious what people are reading. Hey, well, thanks for coming on, Chris. We appreciate you.
Thanks again for having me.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Yeah, get out there, crush it, close some deals, guys. We'll talk soon.